bring in ESPN 1320 Kings writer and creator of the Kings Beat. He is our man, and 50 grand. James Ham. James, talking about Zion Williamson here. Trying to figure out why exactly he's not playing when he's dunking and 360ing and doing all of this stuff. And you got a win or go home game tonight for the New Orleans Pelicans, and Zion's still not out there.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the strangest things, just the way that they've handled him all season long. And I mean, we're looking at a really young star level player. We've seen players sit out seasons and to heal up and all that stuff, but this is a really young guy. And every time we see him, it's usually a negative report. At least we're seeing positive reports that he can actually get up and do a 360 dunk. But, I think there is a big difference between being able to do that and being able to run up and down the court, being able to defend, sure. Being able to make lateral cuts. So I think we just have to, I don't like calling players out. I don't like calling players out for injuries unless I really know what's going on there.
Well, to be honest with you, I think it's the other way around. I think he wants to play, and I don't think the Pelicans are signing off on it. And I think that's why you see the video he made in the gym and why you see him doing what he's doing before games. I think he feels like whether he's right or not, whether the doctor is signing off on it or not, I don't know. He feels like he's ready to go.
Has he earned that, though? Has he earned that? Because I don't think he has.
He earned what?
The opportunity to say when he gets to play and when he doesn't.
Well, I mean, he's his own human being, right?
Well, no, I mean, within the franchise.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if it's his body and he says, I'm good, I want to play, to answer your question, yeah, he's earned it. It's his body.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I understand it's his body, but at the same time, where does he fit into the team? He hasn't played in one of the 83 games that they've played this season.
Well, that would be his point. Like, the video was a month ago, and he's trying to be back a month ago, and you guys wouldn't let me play.
Yeah,
and that's the whole thing.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to this situation looks like it's heading for like a bad breakup, and it has for a while. So at what point do you limit sort of a player's ability to do damage to himself? And I guess it's good that he has lost a lot of weight, because I know that was a previous problem. But this is a guy who's had foot problems, and there was a point where he was, one of the guys that the NBA thought they were moving forward with as one of their stars. And certainly the Pelicans thought they were moving forward as this is their franchise player. And if they're not willing to put him on the court right now, I think I understand that it's his body, but I also understand that it's their commitment. It's their franchise. It's that group.
We got to use uncomfortable terms like protecting your asset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, I think so.
That's essentially what we're talking about right here. Is New Orleans looking at like what they can build next year versus what they might be able to accomplish. They probably have more to lose this year by bringing Zion back than they have to gain.
Right.
Well, and if he breaks his foot again, then it's...
that's what I mean. You have more to lose than you do gain.
Right. Yeah. And then that's where you hear reports of Zion saying, well, somebody else protect the asset. Because if you're going to have this kind of conversation every time I'm injured, I don't want to be here. And I think that's, to your point, James, I think that's where we might be heading.
Yeah, and I also think that if, as a franchise, if every time a player has an injury, he, gains 40 pounds, and then you're worried about him further hurting himself, and it's this perpetual cycle of someone who doesn't stay in game shape, who's not ready when it's time to go. I mean, there's a lot more to this situation, and it's not just the Pelicans are doing one thing. If the Pelicans thought Zion Williamson could help them win and get into the playoffs right now, he would be playing. And not only that, but how do you even drop a guy in from the sky who hasn't played the entire season? What role does he have? How do you put him on the floor? He's never played with Jonas Valanciunas. He's never played with CJ McCollum. And we could say, oh, well, he'll be able to figure it out. Well, at what cost? At the cost of your playoff chances? At a certain point, this is a team game. and he has not been available for his team the entire season. So I would prefer to like, look, let's reset with you next year. If there's a way we get into the playoffs and maybe we see that there's possibility to make second round somehow, and you've been here every day practicing and working with your team and trying to figure out how you could be like a 16 to 18 minute game per game guy off the bench who just scores in the post, that's one thing. But this team at one time was built around him, and now it's built around other players, and you just can't shake everything up on a whim hoping that some guy will help you when the honest truth is he probably won't, not this season.
You're listening to D'Lo and KC on ESPN 1320 KIFM West Sacramento, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, and Odyssey Station, and driven by last year's Elk Grove Dodge. Playoffs get underway this week, and of course the play-in championship of the world coming up tonight. We could talk more about that stuff as we roll along. James, I was catching up with you and Brandon on the Kings Beat this morning. I love the deep dive that you guys did into De'Aaron Fox, and it got me thinking about one of the particular playoff matchups that we're watching this weekend with Minnesota and Memphis. But you made it a point pretty early in the episode talking about De'Aaron's personality and how we should probably shift we should probably shift what we expect from De'Aaron, because he has a personality. It's who he is. We've got to kind of stop expecting him to change. And it made me think of Karl Anthony Towns, how people would say similar things about Karl Anthony Towns, and then Anthony Edwards comes in. And Anthony Edwards is that dude. He's got the swag. He's got the attitude. He's got the flair. He's got the fire. He's got the superstar. He's got the game, but he's got everything that Karl Anthony Towns doesn't have. And it just made me think, like, man, you could just bury a lot of this noise if one of the guys who comes in this year has some fire like Anthony Edwards does. I know you're not getting Anthony Edwards right now. To me, he's like a one of one. There aren't many like him. But he has been such a tremendous asset to Karl Anthony Towns this season, on and off the floor, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tyrese Halliburton was partially that guy, but you can't have so many voices in the room, and that doesn't mean that De'Aaron can have a voice or that he won't have a voice. But sometimes he's better using his voice in a different way. And he's not the noisy rah-rah guy, and we keep expecting or wanting something from him that, like, let's be honest, I don't think that he can provide. That doesn't mean he can't be your best player. It doesn't mean that he can't be the guy that leads you to championships down the road if you get the right players around him. What it does mean is that you're going to need different types of leaders around him. And, I think that you look at any championship team and, sometimes your best player is that guy. He's your voice. But sometimes he's not. Sometimes it's, an Andre Iguodala or, like there are so many veterans who have been in locker rooms that have made the difference. Like even go back to the young Warriors when they kept winning, when they started winning, is guys like David West, like there are reasons why people who have like really good NBA experience are so valuable to have in your locker room. And if you look at De'Aaron Fox, he hasn't had success. And so it's really hard to continue to try to be the leader when you just keep failing again and again. Your team keeps failing, your franchise keeps failing, and then you start feeling that, like, okay, is it me? Is there something that I did wrong? And so I've seen a lot of that, like over the last couple of years with Fox, sort of, the highs. I think his second season he came in, and everyone said, "Oh my gosh, he's just totally different. Like he's just commanding things, and he's just like this huge personality, and he's just killing everybody in 5-on-5 and just running people off the court." And everyone's like, "Okay, this is who he's going to be." But that doesn't mean that that's who he's going to be like going forward. You have to make sure that he's in an environment that supports that and helps build on that and helps build success. And he just hasn't been in an organization that's been successful. And it's hard, and, I was doing a deep dive into him and Sabonis today. It's crazy. Sabonis has been in the league 6 years, right? One more year than Fox. He's on his fourth franchise if you count the fact that he was drafted by Orlando. He's had 5 head coaches, like bounced around nonstop, 5 head coaches. Like, I think both of these guys, this is such an important hire for them. They need the Kings to get this right for them, for their own sanity, so they can become the players that they should become, so they can be in an environment that fosters growth and, and helps players elevate, as opposed to players constantly being in chaos and looking around to see, what asteroid is about to fall and hit Golden One Center. And it's just not conducive to growth. It's not conducive to someone's building someone's confidence, whether it's as a leader or just as a player on the court. You got to get it right. And so, yeah, I think that's part of it with Fox. You're just waiting for that moment. And like, maybe we change expectations about who and what he is and what he can be. Because, right now we think he can be a really, really good scorer. Outside of that, let's let him become who he can become. He's still only 24 years old. And it's just so hard to be successful as an individual when you're getting just stomped on the court all the time. And throughout his career, that's what's happened. I mean, they win 30 games every year, and it's tough.
Do you think that Domantas Sabonis has some leadership qualities that people want out of Fox? Because I feel like I've seen that a few times with his short time with the Kings, but just being vocal, being an emotional leader. I know people said Tyrese was that, but I don't know. I feel like there's a little bit of that with Sabonis, and in turn, it seems to allow Fox to freely pick and choose his spots when he wants to be vocal and be a little bit more emotional. You think Sabonis helps him out with that?
Well, I think when you're on the court, your big man is always supposed to be your vocal leader. Because they're the back line, and so they see everything that's coming. And so, like, specifically on defense, that's what you hear. It's always the big man who's running the show on the backside, right? Mm-hmm. So I think part of what we see from Sabonis is that. But for me with Sabonis, he kind of has this. He's such an interesting guy. I love interviewing him because at first he comes across, he's so staccato and so short. Like, his answers seem really, really short. But if you go back and you watch his face and you listen to the words and you transcribe the quotes, he's an incredible quote. He's very, very passionate. He feels to me like it's funny, him and De'Aaron, their paths are so similar and so different. He's a guy who's just searching for a home. He's searching for some franchise to realize just how incredibly good he is and just embrace him and make him the face of the franchise and build around him like the Kings hope to do. And I think that's one advantage the Kings have in this situation. And then you look at Fox, where Fox is like, man, I've said it the whole time. I want to be the guy who somehow figures out a way to deliver here, because it means more here than it will anywhere else. Because this fan base, this franchise is, they're just dreaming of it. We talked about the Minnesota thing where they're losing their cool and dancing in the streets and stuff because they won a play-in game. Like, good for them. Mm-hmm. Sacramento would be the same exact situation, maybe even worse. People would be crying in the stands.
Oh yeah.
They would be crying all over the place. And so when I look at
There'd be a fireworks celebration outside the Golden One Center that no one inside could see. It would just be explosions everywhere, like it was New Year's Eve.
No, I totally agree. And then when I look at Fox and Sabonis as a pairing, I don't necessarily see yin and yang. I don't see the really noisy guy and the super quiet guy. I see two guys who are just searching for basketball success. And you can see it. Like, they want success so bad. They just can't figure out how to get there. And every time they do, something weird happens and someone gets fired or they get traded when it comes to Sabonis. There's just so much to it that you can see sort of the angst of both of them, but it just comes from two totally different, experiences. And I think that that's probably one of the things that sticks out to me the most. If you could find one more guy that is that guy that can tie this whole thing together, you might really, really have something.
I think the concern I have, because I'm with Kenny in the sense that watching last year or watching the times that the brief time that they were together, you did see Sabonis do a lot of talking, a lot of fist pumping. You saw him be really animated with his teammates. Everyone obviously is familiar with the hug heard around the world after the first game, and there's lots of great pics and videos out there of Sabonis interacting with guys on the floor. And I wonder, I guess my concern, and maybe this is being a broken Sacramento Kings fan, is that's what it's like now. But what if things don't go well at the start of next year? Like, does he fall into a shell a little bit? Does he become quieter? Does he lose that animation? Because it feels like you talk about searching for a home. Like, he's got that intensity. He's like, okay, I'm going to prove it, and I'm going to prove it here, because it's you don't know any better yet. Like, you don't know that. You ain't the first one, pal. A lot of guys have come in here with that mentality, and they have all wound up in the same scrap heap over here to our left. They're in the clown tunnel at the yet-to-be-destroyed former Arco Arena. And I don't want him to lose. I guess what I fear as a Kings fan, him losing that intensity and excitement and enthusiasm that he came in here with when he started his Kings career.
You know how you fix that? You don't let them lose it.
Yeah.
You go out and you get good players. You go out and you get a good coach. You go out and you make the right decisions. Like, I've heard this for years. I mean, the 12 seasons covering the team. Every single year, as soon as they start winning, it'll quiet all the noise. I'm like, well, I'm still waiting for that moment. And the one time they did start winning, they just cranked up the noise. Like, when Dave Yeager thought he was getting fired after 20 games, and all of a sudden he's there at game like 23, that's when they started throwing, like fuel on the fire to get rid of him. So, like, embrace success. You got two really good players. Embracing success this summer means getting the right coach, putting 3 or 4 new pieces around these guys that are really good, that make sense for who they are as players, and building something. Have a good first season, a true first season with Sabonis. If you do that, he'll sign an extension next summer. I almost guarantee it. Like, if you do this the right way. And so, I don't know. I would worry about it, of course, that you take the soul out of a player. But I think it's a lot easier to beat down a 19-year-old that's coming into the league and have it slowly build towards negativity, which is what they've done with Fox, as opposed to having someone come in from the outside, land, and say, okay, this is where I want to be. Now, the Kings have had plenty of guys that they paid to come in who got here and were like, oh, man, I don't want to be here. This isn't what I imagined. Yeah. The Marco Bellinellis of the world who did nothing but complain.
Kenny's favorite.
No.
Yeah, complain. All he did was complain about Darren Collison didn't give him a perfect pass like Rondo did, and so he wanted to be a starter because Rondo threw him better passes, and it's like, well, you're not good enough to be a starter. And
the worst.
A guy like George Hill, George Hill did the same thing. He got paid. I think he got a 3-year, $57 million contract, and was just like, oh, yeah, I don't want to be here. Yeah, I'm good.
Well, can I stall him out for a second? Because I always thought we were hard on George Hill in the sense that, yes, he absolutely did sign that contract. But in the middle of that year, the Kings gave up. The Kings were done. And that's when Dave made I think it was Jaeger made the public proclamation of, yeah, we're probably going to rest guys. There's, guys are going to be on a rotation. And this was with like 40 games left in the season. So I get George Hill going, yeah, like I did sign that contract to play basketball. And now my coach is out here telling me I'm going to be on a rotation with Garrett Temple and Vince Carter and Zach Randolph for the remainder of the year of when I'm going to play and when I'm not.
Okay, so going back to George Hill in the 2017-18 season, which was, of course, De'Aaron Fox's rookie season, he only made it to game 43 with the Kings. He didn't even make it to the All-Star break because they had already traded him well before the All-Star break. At that point, he came in coming off his best season as a pro when he averaged 16.9 in Utah. He was averaging 10 points a game, and he was playing 26.6 minutes a game because he wasn't playing well at all. He was shooting the ball well, but outside of that, George Hill wasn't playing the ball and wasn't playing well at all. And I'll tell you this, like I'll go back to that year. He actually had, I think he had 2 deaths in the family during the first half of the season. But again, you could tell right away that he was like lights out. Like I'm good. I don't know, I mean, we kept hearing that he didn't even want to play anymore. That he just wanted to go do like an outdoor network thing where he went like had a hunting and fishing show. Yeah.
George Hill?
No, George
Oh
Hill.
yeah, George Hill is a huge,
that's a big outdoorsman right there.
big outdoorsman. That was one of the reasons he came to Sacramento, because of the outdoor community and because of Brad Miller.
I was gonna ask, like, where Brad Miller's got to tie into this somewhere. Like the guy who showed up at the practice facility with a dead deer in the back of his truck has to tie into this somewhere.
Yeah, I mean they're friends because they played together in Indiana, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so like it's a complicated mess. Though my point is that there are players that have come in here multiple times that the second they take the free agent money are like, okay, well I took the money, now get me out of here. And I don't think that that's what we're seeing with Sabonis. Sabonis wants to be here. He wants to build something. I think he sees the same thing Fox does, where it's like, look, if we figure this thing out, these fans are crazy. This is gonna be a lot of fun. Like we could be like superstars here. Like we'll be thought of like Vlade and Chris and Peja and Doug and Bobby and those guys. Like we can get to that.
And the crazy thing is, if they don't, it doesn't matter. Yeah, they're just in the scrap heap with everybody else over the last 16 years.
It wasn't you, it was Sacramento, because it's
That's
all
it.
Sacramento.
That's it. It's not even a win-lose situation. It's just it's a win-win or win or gone.
Yeah. No, it's a mess. I mean, I think that like this season specifically, we're looking at just this it's a precipice of disaster. If you get it right, then it can be really right. If you get it wrong, this could be a holy mess. So just a gigantic ball of flames. And again, if it goes wrong and you start losing guys like Sabonis and stuff like that, we're going to see the same exact thing again, where a general manager loses his job and you start talking about like his coach is under contract still, and like it'll be the same thing all over again.
Yeah, so just win. How about that?
Just win, baby.
We did the math on that like a couple of days ago. That if Monty fails, he's hiring a head coach this offseason. But if Monty fails and doesn't put the right team together, he's fired next year. And then you have a new general manager coming in with a coach 1 year into his deal, and it's just the same thing over and over. It's Groundhog's Day with the Sacramento Kings. It's the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what you have to break the cycle. You do. You have to show patience with your front office. You got to let them build this thing. You let them take a monster swing. Now you got to see if they can piece it together. I mean, that's why, like, whether I love Monty or I don't like Monty, or whether I think he's a good GM or I don't think he's a GM, I still don't know a lot of those things, right? But at the same time, like when you take a swing like he did with Sabonis, that should buy him 2 years, because that's what kind of move that is. That's a move that he added a 25-year-old all-star. You got to let him see it through. You got to you have to see the vision. And I hope he's got it in him to keep going and to keep building and to do the things that he has to do. But I'll tell you this, when you show the guts to trade Tyrese Halliburton, that shows me a lot. It does, because that move had it still does. It is so incredibly unpopular with a huge portion of the fan base, but that doesn't mean it wasn't the right move. So that showed a lot for me, for him to go out there and make that move and have the confidence to do it and say, okay, I'm taking ownership of this trade. That is what we're doing. This is a new direction we're heading. And I hope I got it right. And if I didn't, I'm sure I'll just get fired.
It's caused a few Kings fans to actually lose their mind.
No, they're going crazy.
There's some former Kings writers who have just lost their entire mind after the Tyrese Halliburton trade.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's always bizarre to me because I think Tyrese Halliburton is a great ball player. I keep saying it all the time. But he's not better than De'Aaron Fox. Like, De'Aaron Fox was putting up numbers slightly better than what Tyrese was doing this year. And we wanted to ship him out of town so fast. You know what I'm saying? So when you make that deal, you were able to keep the better guard, and you were able to add a guy like Sabonis. I agree with you, James. I would love to let him see the vision out all the way through. Even you guys know how I feel about making the playoffs next year, even if it didn't happen. But I don't know if he's going to have the opportunity to do it if it doesn't happen next year. Because I think, and I'm just assuming, and I have no intel, you might have more than me, but I'm assuming if we have another year like we had this year, next year, and they don't make the playoffs, I could see Sabonis telling him, like, I'm not coming back. I'm not resigning. So try and get something for me now. De'Aaron Fox could make a move where it's like, I've had enough. Like, again, move me on right now. You know, so I agree with what you're saying. I just don't know if it goes bad this year. He's going to get an opportunity with these particular guys to try and build on that.
yeah. I mean, there is this weird thing going around on social media that, like, De'Aaron Fox is some negative value contract and that you can't trade him and that he's a bad player. I mean, maybe the market isn't super high for him. Like,
Trading
you're not
for Russell
going to.
Westbrook.
Yeah, I guess that's the one. I mean, that's the one that's out there where, again, like like you don't need to write a follow up. We all know that you don't know basketball. It's okay. We can move on. Like, that's okay. like we get it. I mean, you're talking about trading a 24-year-old who averaged 23 something points per game and averaged 30 points per game in the last month of the season. And you're talking about trading him for a completely destructive, like 33, 34-year-old who just was very unsuccessful playing with 4 other Hall of Famers.
Right.
And I mean, like, you can like Russ or not, and that's totally up to you. But the thought of him being a better player at this point, now, could Russ possibly lead you to the playoffs? Sure. One time, and then you're done. And he's,
Kenny Caraway model.
Hey,
Let's go, baby.
Think off, though. You have to think off.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not like he can't put up numbers, but I mean, you think he didn't want to take a 6-man role with the Los Angeles Lakers, but
let's not do this. Let's not break down the Russell Westbrook and the Los Angeles Lakers. The joke was people talking about trading Russell Westbrook for De'Aaron Fox. Like, wait a minute, what are we doing right here? Like, De'Aaron is a great he's a really good basketball player.
Yeah, and he's 24 years old. He's got so much room to grow. And like what Kenny said there, there are people out there who think that Tyrese Halliburton is a better basketball player than De'Aaron Fox. And I'll tell you, he certainly doesn't have the ceiling of De'Aaron Fox. Mm-hmm. Like, does he play a winning style of basketball? Sure. But
they don't even win. Like, he does play a winning style of basketball. That's never turned into wins so far.
No. I mean, he's been there in Sacramento, and it's not like they won in Indiana, even though they're trying not to win. I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, De'Aaron Fox is still a high level basketball player. You're just waiting for him to have the moment where they have the pieces around him for him to succeed.
And one of those pieces is going to be the head coach. We'll come back. We'll talk about coaching interviews and a couple of other questions I have for James. We'll talk about the playoffs, the play-in, and all of that good stuff. As D'Lo and Casey continue here on Sacramento's #1 sports station, ESPN 1320. Clear.
James, how you doing, buddy?
Good.
You got any plans for the weekend?
I think we're going to a steakhouse tonight, a new steakhouse up in Nevada City. I don't know.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's good stuff.
I don't NBA young Cobb. I've never read one of your comments, so
He's adventurous.
yeah, I'm not sure.
He's adventurous.
He's nice with the keyboard, though.
He's nice with the keyboard. Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and Kobe Dawn, the scouts who rank Hallie ahead of Fox. What scout? Some unnamed scout. I would like to see it. Yeah, I mean, as far as value to contract and all that stuff, I think Halliburton is easier to move, which is what was proven. But at the same time, I think Fox, there are a ton of teams around the league that would love to have De'Aaron Fox on their roster.
I know y'all need to stop blaming Russell Westbrook for what went on in Los Angeles. I'm going to tell you that right now. All of you. You're all guilty of it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So Kobe down. Bobby Marks, the main scout for ESPN. ESPN isn't a professional franchise. Come on, bro. Like,
And if you're talking about 25 under 25, I mean, like James said, a lot of that has to do with there's multiple things in there. So I'll put it to you like this. I'll put it to you like if Fox and Halliburton have the same contract, they're taking Fox. More teams are taking Fox.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Mark
Halliburton's a
Mastrov
good
did
ball
sell
player.
his stake in the Kings. Gorov. He did.
Halliburton, a hell of a ball player. That's no shade to
Yeah.
him whatsoever. He's a hell of a ball player. I love, like James said, I love his style of play. I love what he brings to the team. But
Yeah.
let's just be real. Like he had the Kings here, and this wasn't a Pacers situation where they were trying to lose. Like those 7 games when De'Aaron was out, the Kings were trying to win. Not only did they lose, they got blasted with Tyrese Halliburton. Blasted.
Yeah. And John Bull makes a point. Kevin Pelton, Mike Schmidt, Bobby Marks, they aren't NBA scouts. Bobby Marks is in the front office. He is considered a cap guru for sure. He wasn't ever like a scout guy. Kevin Pelton is a good dude, but he's a writer. Mike Schmidt is the greatest resource for draft coverage in the world. I'll just tell you that right now. He goes around to every basketball gym in the entire world and scouts people that you would never have heard of and sits down and does interviews with them. He is the real deal, Mike Schmitz.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no one else who's even remotely close, like Gavoni, none of them. The only guy that I think that does a different style of job is Sam Vesney from The Athletic, who is absolutely incredible.
From now on, though, I am going to call him NBA Young Cobb. That is how I'm going to refer to him. NBA Young Cobb, what up?
Yeah.
It's your name from now on.
That's funny.
Wow, there goes Trey. Nice, Trey getting ready.
Did you see your boy's tattoo?
No. Yeah, you see.
Yeah, no, it's a monster.
Trey Lance?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tatted up, huh?
That's a beast. It's not even a tattoo. That is a painting on his back.
He went for the mural look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He sure did.
Yeah.
He sure did.
I mean, that's like 50 hours worth of work at a minimum.
Yeah, at least.
No, I say no. I pass on that. Yeah.
Child of God. Yeah, it's very nice.
You said Ben Affleck has a big giant back tattoo? Is that what you said, Jesse? Oh.
Is it of J-Lo?
Kevin Durant does too, doesn't he? I think KD got a huge back tattoo.
Mac Dre, the perfect way to get out on this Friday. It's D-Lo and KC, brought to you by McQueen and the Violet Fog, the smoothest gin in the world, handcrafted in Brazil. 1320 Kings insider and creator of the Kings Beat, James Ham, with us here to close out the week. We've obviously been talking a ton about the Sacramento Kings and next year. And do you have any idea when coaching interviews are going to start?
I've heard that they're They're still compiling a list. They're still in
boy.
in that mode right now. And look, I think there's a specific reason for that. Number one, it's only them and the Lakers right now that don't have a head coach, right? So you know that if it's like you're going head to head against the Lakers, there's a good chance that someone will choose the Lakers over you because the Lakers are going to pay you more and they have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. But I don't think there's any reason to rush because there is a ton of really good coaches. Plenty of those guys are going into going into the playoffs right now, and you don't really want to mess with them in the first round. So guys like Kenny Atkinson, guys like Mike Brown. I also think that there's possibility for one or two coaches to no longer be head coaches, during the first couple of rounds of the playoffs, and those are also coaches that you might want to wait around and listen to see if they somehow become available, especially if there aren't any other coaching opportunities open right now. So, I think you can probably get interviews with Mike Brown and Kenny Atkinson, and I think they probably will here in the coming weeks. And I think you'd want to wait and see what happens with Utah to see if Quinn Snyder becomes available. And if Quinn Snyder would take this job, that would be like the crowning achievement. Yeah, that would be the guy. But outside of that, there's going to be, the Bucks have a couple of guys there, Darvin Ham and Charles Lee, that the Kings are going to want to get their hands on. And then,
so do they have to wait on that? Like, how does that work now that we're in the playoffs?
No, you can ask for approval, and then you fly to them. Typically, you go to them and say, okay, we'll have a preliminary interview, during the playoffs on an off day, and that's kind of the way it works. But I think it's interesting if you look at sort of a lot of the names that we're hearing again, like Charles Lee, Darvin Ham, and Kenny Atkinson. They were all in Atlanta with Budenholzer when Wes Wilcox was there. So those are names that I think we're going to continue to hear because they have firsthand knowledge of those guys and sort of what they bring to the table and who they can be as coaches.
Yeah, I'm hearing that. I understand. Just a little impatient. It's time to get the ball rolling. There's guys who run in the playoffs that you could be talking to right now. Like if Terry Stotts or whatever. Come on, next Tuesday. Let's go. Talk to him. What are we waiting for? But that's just me being impatient. But when would the ideal time be for the Kings to have their coach?
Well, okay, so you're going to start having draft prospects come through probably early May, right? We're going to start seeing guys come through. It'll heat up once the actual lottery happens. What did we say? That was May 17th, right around there. That's when the lottery happens. Then it starts to heat up. But the Kings still have all their assistants on staff right now. So if you start bringing in prospects, guys like Doug and Bobby will be the guys that run them through their drills and stuff. That's what you would start seeing. And so again, you can start the process. It's going to be Monty and Wes who make those picks anyways. It's not going to be a head coach. But it's good I think that's one of the good things about having a new head coach come in. You get to read a lot from how they handle those situations. Like when they walk in, how do they bring in draft prospects? What are they looking for? What are they demanding out of players? Do they do trick plays? I know, I think someone said when someone came into Sacramento one time under Dave Yeager, they just rolled the ball out and the clock started ticking. Okay, what are you going to do? Are you just going to clam up and stand there and start flicking the ball up with your foot and mess around? Or are you self-motivated? You're going to grab the ball, going to go do a couple of spin moves, go throw down a dunk, grab the rebound, back it out, hit a three, still looking at the clock, what else can I do? What can I show you in 24 seconds? So, I think there's a lot that can be learned about a coach and his style by the way that they do those prospect interviews.
Yeah. I wonder, because I feel, and tell me what you think about this, I feel like you said something interesting there where you said Wes and Monty are going to be making the pick anyway. Wouldn't you, and they'll have it before then, but wouldn't you want the coach there for the workouts as well?
Well,
I do.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, you would, like in a perfect world, you want a coach getting as much exposure to a player before you got him. Again, you want the coach there if you're going to take, a couple of top tier guys out to dinner. You'd want the coach there to break down, to have those conversations, to see how they interact with each other, to see, if there's, some things that you're like, oh, okay, I don't like the feel of this. I think we always go back to the Ricky Rubio interview the Kings did, where it's widely known that like Rubio was sitting there, they took him out to dinner, and his mom took his plate and cut his steak for him.
That's funny.
Well, it's funny, but it also showed that like you're dealing with a very, very young man, right? So even though he was the same age as a lot of the other kids that were coming into the draft, it kind of it gave you that kind of it really, like, how is this going to work out when your mom's in Spain and you're here? Like, how is that going to work out? Yeah, coach, I'm going to
steak for me.
I'm going to steak dinner. Who's coming with me? Yeah. So I mean, those are always like the things that stand out. And then sometimes you get a guy in that setting, and you really they sort of like they just relax and start giving you like great information, and you start having a really good conversation, and they can change what you think about somebody. I hired and fired people for years, and like it's so hard to get certain people to like relax in an interview setting. And you got to handle everyone differently in those settings, and sometimes if you just hit the right thing, just whatever it is, you just get someone to relax the right way, you can crack them open, and boom, all of a sudden you get to see the real them. And I think that's what you want to have a coach there for, those moments where you're trying to see. And again, you bring in a new coach. I think if you're a GM, you want to see how he reacts, how a coach handles situations, how he tries to get in with a player. You want to see those things, because that's all part of sort of the package that you have to carry into the year. Like if you see right away that your coach is a great X's and O's guy, but he doesn't connect well, you need to make sure you have people around your team that do connect well with players, and then someone that connects well with your coach that can bridge that gap. So there are a lot of things you can learn from those settings.
Yeah.
Are you aware of how closely Monty worked with like Mike D'Antoni in Houston? That was always something. I don't want to say always. When Monty McNair came up as a candidate, it was something we heard a lot about, that he worked pretty closely with the coaching staff in Houston. And he used a line about working together, the new head coach coming in and working together with him and his front office to kind of shape the vision of the Sacramento Kings. Are you aware of like how closely he worked with Mike?
Yeah, well, I think when it came to Monty's role in Houston, he was the guy that like bridged the gap between the analytics side and the coaching staff. So that's always been the big issue, right? You got a bunch of guys who are analytics guys who don't know how to explain to the basketball coaches how to use the analytics that they have. So like you can have as much analytics as you want, but if you don't know how to relay that, and I think that's where Monty really, he's sort of underrated. It's that he's the guy who can take major advanced analytics and make it palatable for guys who are lifetime basketball coaches, guys who are lifers. So even a guy like Mike D'Antoni, who, he has his own version of analytics, but it's his coaching style that is his own version. But when you can sort of like lay out and map out and quantify what his coaching does and show him that you understand how he's so successful by breaking down his actual style and showing it in the analytics. And then if you can show him that, and then you can add to it by, dropping in some more information that you have about, hot spots for players, or, like there's all kinds of things you can learn about players. And, even going through, like when we were talking about Fox, he still has like his shot chart looks like someone took a shotgun and just sprayed all over the place, right? It's still, and he's really, really good in the mid range. and he's improved. But again, it's not in one spot. It's all over the place, which is kind of interesting to watch. And then you see like really refined players who only shoot from like 5 different spots on the floor. And then the analytics tell them that, well, we need to get player X to these like 5 spots. And let me give you 7 different ways to get into those 5 spots. And so there's a lot of like ways in which the analytics can really help, further what's happening on the court. And Monty's one of the few guys that had that job of like relaying that information and making it digestible and something that can be used as a tool.
Sorry, Casey, is there an analytics team here?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the Kings used to have Luke Bourne used to be their head of analytics, who was incredible. But they still have a huge analytics crew. Every time I go in, I see them. There's a little area right by the conference room, and like they're like, like they're all just sitting there. I think there's 4 or 5 of them. I don't know everyone because there has been, over the course of years and years now, there's been plenty of turnover there, just like there is everywhere else in every organization. But like that's where, like years ago, I went to the Sloan Analytics Conference at MIT, and that's where you find these guys. These guys that just have just incredible ideas, and you're just sitting there like absolutely flabbergasted by these young guys who are coming up with like extremely advanced research projects about, player usage or predicting injuries, or like, I mean, they have something for everyone. It's crazy what they're doing there. And Luke Bourne, not only did he do a bunch of those research projects for the Sloan Analytics Conference, but he's also been like the mentor for like a ton of people. And so I'm sure some of those guys are within the walls of Sacramento, and you can get smart guys. They're hiding out, smart guys who are basketball fans who, they kind of marry that whole thing, and it's good.
Yeah. Hey, James, on a little bit of a lighter note, at least I hope it's a lighter note. We talked to Ty Lawson today. Do you have any good memory? How'd you enjoy Ty Lawson's season? He was only here 1 season, huh?
Yeah, I like Ty. And I've told you guys this. Davion Mitchell's offensive game reminds me a lot of Ty. Really a lot. Like a lot of nuts and bolts, a lot of quick takes to the rim, good shooter from the outside. I liked Ty a lot when he was in Sacramento. We did have the issue where he missed a team plane. And then, there was some...
It felt like he was in a bad place when he got here. Didn't he have a... Like, I don't know how to... Didn't he have a legal issue?
I don't think he had a legal issue.
There was something that happened.
I feel like he had something right before he got here.
Wow.
And I don't, whatever it was, I don't feel like he was like super over. Like today, dude, he sounded awesome today. Like he sounded wonderful. I've interviewed him before. He didn't sound that way before. So, he sounds like he's in a good place. And I'm sorry that I can't specifically remember what it was, but I feel like there was something here regarding Ty Lawson when he first got here. Or maybe it happened, right before he signed with the Kings.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of NBA rumors about Ty Lawson, why Ty Lawson's not in the league anymore. And it probably has more to do with your backdrop than it does anything else, unfortunately.
No.
But I'll tell you, in the locker room, he was a hoot. So 2 things about Ty Lawson. Number 1, he stole everyone's underwear. And you're just looking at me like, wait, what?
Sophomore class field trip.
So like Kosta Koufis goes in to go get dressed after coming out of the shower, and he's looking around. Who stole my underwear? And it was always Ty. Ty would steal people's underwear, and then, like just to mess with them. Like he's a prankster. And then the other one that he did is that he has a brand of slippers. They're called Sleekers.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
and so he would walk around in his Sleekers, which are awesome. I don't know if you guys out there want to look up Google Sleekers.
Yeah,
I'm mad we didn't ask him about
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, so they're Jordans, or like really like or flights or whatever. He has really cool, but they're gigantic. They look like cartoon feet that are slippers that you put them on and you wear them around. And so he was a really fun guy. He's very quiet and kind of reserved, but I really liked him, and I really wished he would have figured it out in Sacramento because he had potential. I'll also tell you this. Pete D'Alessandro coming from Denver with Ty, that is part of the reason why he didn't like Isaiah Thomas, because he kept saying, well, he's no Ty Lawson. And we kept saying, well, I mean, he's not. Like, maybe he is. I don't know. So that was always sort of like the battle. One of the reasons why he didn't want to keep Isaiah. He didn't think Isaiah was a starting point guard. And just flat out, I'll say it right here. He was wrong. Pete D'Alessandro was wrong. Isaiah Thomas was a starting point guard, and not only that, but he was a really, really good point guard for the Sacramento Kings, and they gave him away for Alex Oriaki in a trade exception. So like they got nothing for him, and that was a fool's errand. It was just a moronic move by somebody.
And that was all done to sign Ty Lawson the next year?
No, that was so they signed Darren Collison. Instead, Ty Lawson came after.
Yeah. Okay.
But when Ty Lawson became available later, that was even during a different era. That wasn't even the D'Alessandro era.
Right. And didn't you tell the Summer League story where I think it was Vivek came up to you and asked you about Isaiah, and we're like, yeah, but we got Darren Collison.
Okay, well, that summer was wacky, totally wacky. So we were standing, me and John Santiago, my old partner at Cal.
That's what it was. Yeah,
we were standing, waiting for the Kings game to start, and Mark Mastroff and Vivek were behind us, and he tapped us on the shoulder and said, "Hey, what do you think of the Darren Collison signing?" Which again was a whole nother thing. They called us into a conference room in Las Vegas for the Darren Collison signing, and had Kings fans there in the room. Yeah. One of which refuses to acknowledge that he was wearing a number 22 Isaiah Thomas jersey, but who was wearing a number 22 Sacramento Kings jersey while Darren Collison was signing and Isaiah Thomas was not being signed. Anyway, so he asked us, hey, what do you think? And I think John Santiago started it. He goes, well, I would have just signed Isaiah. And he goes, what do you mean? It got quiet for a sec, and then he like tapped on the shoulder. Like, what do you mean? You don't like the Collison signing? We're like, well, no, we're fine with the Collison signing. Collison's a perfectly fine guard. You should have signed Isaiah Thomas, though. Well, we don't think he's a starting point guard. And I just looked at him like, well, he was your starting point guard. He averaged 20 and 6 last year, 20 and 7. What do you mean he's not a starting point guard? Well, we just don't think he's a starter. And I'm like, okay, well, you could have signed him and Collison, and then you could have let them battle it out. And it's like, well, we just thought of him as a starter. I mean, as a bench player. And I'm like, okay, well then let me hit you with this. Last year you signed Carl Landry to a much bigger deal than Isaiah Thomas got. And everyone in the league knows that Carl Landry's not a starting power forward and he's a bench player. So why would you give Carl Landry that money and not Isaiah Thomas that same money when you had the money to spend? Well, and that was kind of the end of the conversation.
That'll do it.
Like, let's not talk basketball with basketball people. That would be not a good idea.
No wonder so many Kings people want to trade De'Aaron Fox. You've been conditioned to think that point guards who average 20 and 6 should get traded. It all makes sense now.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. Who do you got tonight, Hammer? Pelicans or Clippers? Paul George-less Clippers.
I still like the Clippers. They just punch you in the face.
Me too.
They're a veteran team.
3 for 3? That's all three of us, right?
Yeah, they know how to play. And, you don't have to like them to know that, like, they're going to come at you and they're going to hit you with force. And if you're not ready for it, they're going to thump you.
Hawks, Cavs. Who we got? Hawks won by, I believe the last time the Hawks were on the floor, they won by 59.
Yeah,
That's not true, but felt like it.
I probably would go with the Hawks again. Although we're seeing that there's a good chance that they get their Jared Allen's back tonight, even though he's got a bad hand. So, yeah, you know what? No, I'm going to go stunner in that. I'm going to go Cavs.
Okay.
Wrong.
All right.
Wrong answer, James. We want the Hawks to win so they can get into the playoffs and feel like they don't need John Collins even more and let them move on from him.
We want the Hawks to get to the playoffs so we can continue to be happy for Bogey. Let's call it what it is. We do need that.
Okay. I would also I'd like to see them strike out so they have to make a big move in the offseason and then move away from John Collins.
Whatever, John Collins. Out of there. And here.
I'm with I'm with him. I'm rooting for the Cavs to get the win tonight, and I'm rooting for you to check out the podcast for any part of today's show that you may have missed. You heard Kenny mention it there a moment ago. Ty Lawson was with us. Eddie Gonzalez was with us. Trista Crick, Kyle Matson, of course, this complete conversation with James Ham. Make sure you check out the Kings Beat podcast and the Kings Beat newsletter as well over at thekingsbeat.com.